Hi everybody, it's Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made using the February Shimmerz Color Kitz collection. I'm also using a cut file. I got the cut file that you're going to see in a little while from Paper Issues. They have a number of really beautiful cut files available for free, so I grabbed this one. And I'm painting all of the hearts that are going to fit inside of the cut file with Shimmerz Paints. A quick guest appearance from Lainey. That's our latest dog. We now have 4 dogs, way too many dogs, but I love every one of them. Anyway, I started off adding some Shimmerz clear gesso to all of the hearts. I feel like the clear gesso helps to create a barrier between the paper and the paints, and that helps the paint colors to be a little bit more intense because instead of being soaked into the paper, they're sitting on top of the gesso. And the paper that I use to cut this cut file out of is just regular 80-pound cardstock. I used all 5 paints that were in the February kit. I started off with First Blush, that's an Inklingz, that's the lightest color. Then I used a Coloringz called Pretty in Pink, a Vibez called Gladiola, a Creameez called One Hot Mama, and the hearts at the very top of my mat were painted using a brand new color splash color called Cardinal. I did not want to include all of the footage of me painting these hearts, but I did want you to know that I did go back and add 2 coats of the paint to each of the hearts, and you could see how doing this makes the colors even more intense. And this color that I'm painting right now, that's Gladiola. That was my favorite color. I just love that kind of hot pink color. Now I have all of my hearts painted and I cleaned off my mat, and now I'm going to be adding some touches to each of the hearts. And I just wanted to mention that I'm not going for a perfect flat application of color. I like there to be some variation in the application of the paint. So you'll see that there's some light areas and dark areas for each of the hearts, and I like the way that looks. So for the darkest hearts, the ones that I painted with the color Cardinal Sin, I'm doing some stamping using some StazOn ink in jet black. My goal was to do something a little bit different on each of the different colored hearts. So for these hearts, I'm using a text stamp. I also use a grid stamp and a dot stamp. And for the really bright pink hearts, I'm using stamping as well. For those hearts, I use a crackle stamp, and then I also use a dot stamp on those hearts. For the lighter colored hearts, I use stencils and modeling paste. For the lightest hearts, I'm using this Tim Holtz stencil. I think it's called Dot Fade, and I'm adding a few little dots to those hearts. I love the way this stencil just adds a little bit of texture. You could see the completed hearts at the top of my mat. And then for the other 2 colors of pink, I used some modeling paste through heart stencils. And for those hearts, I used 2 different stencils, one on each of the different colors of pink. But in the end, they kind of look the same because the hearts are about the same size, even though the pattern is a little bit different. But if you look carefully, you can see that some of the hearts are a little more random looking and some of them are a little more lined up. My goal was to make each of the hearts look a little bit different. I just wanted there to be some variation on the final product. And then I added some watered down white acrylic paint splatters using a fan brush. Those fan brushes are great for adding splatters. And then this is the cut file. I added some gel glue to every one of those hearts, and then I layered it on top of the same cut file. The second time that I cut out the cut file, I didn't make the inner cuts, and that gives me a background piece. Now I don't have to back the cut file. I can just fit those hearts into the cut file and they rest on the second piece that I cut out. I hope that makes sense. I don't know about the Cricut, but for the silhouette cameo, I know that you can release the compound path on a cut file and then pull out all of the inner cuts or delete them, and then that way you'll have a solid piece like the one that you see resting on my mat. Now before I add all of these hearts to the cut file, I want to use some inks and ink the edges. I used 4 different colors of Distress Oxide. I used Victorian Velvet for the lightest hearts. I also used Pick Raspberry and Barn Door. Those are pinkish colors. I always think that Barn Door is going to be like a brick red, but it's a little more pink than I originally imagined, so that works well with pinks. And then I used Candied Apple for the darkest color hearts, the ones that are painted with cardinal sin that look like a reddish pink. So I really love this part of the process because I get to see how all of the hearts look on top of the cut file. And I was really happy with the way all of the different paints looked a little bit different, but they all went together. And you know, with Shimmerz Paints, some of them are a little more shimmery, some of them are a little more flat, and I liked all of those variations in color and finish. And then with all of the differences in the modeling paste and the stamping, I liked the way there were lots of different colors and textures on the cut file. I know that some of this is going to get covered up, but I'm not really good at planning beforehand exactly where I want to put things. I can plan where I want to put things, but I so frequently change my mind once I see how everything fits together. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover up the entire cut file, even though I know that with my photo and some of the embellishments, some of these hearts are going to get covered up. So I have my hearts placed down, and you may see that some of the hearts jump around a little bit because then as I was gluing them down, I was thinking that I didn't want to have some of the hearts that were the same color right in the same area. But I did continue around the entire cut file until everything was glued down. And then I added some stitching around the hearts as well. That took a little bit of time, but I absolutely love stitching on cut files, so it's really a labor of love. When I was looking through my embroidery floss, I found that I had a color that matched each of the hearts well enough, so you could see that I tried to match the color of the thread to the color of the heart. So then I added a lot of glue to the cut file, and I attached it down to this large circle. And then I'm going to put a lot of adhesive on the back of this circle, and then I'm going to layer the circle on top of a white circle. I used my Silhouette Cameo to cut these circles out as well. Now I want to bring some pattern paper into the layout, so I picked out this really cute paper. I love the dots that are on it, and I love the shade of pink. And I, of course, had to gut the center of it because I knew that the center would be covered up, and I didn't want to waste that paper. I attached my cut file on top of it, and now I'm going to start adding other elements to the page. Finally, I have a photo that I cut into a square. I mounted it on some white cardstock, and then I created a mat. I used some of the Cardinal Sin Color Splash to paint along the edge, so I would have that really pretty color all around my photo. And then I was thinking that it would be nice to have a black border all around the outside of the layout, just so that it would be a little bit more contained. There would be black somewhere else on the layout besides just behind the cut file. So I cut the pattern paper down about 1/4 inch on each side. And now I'm attempting to use my Creative Memories corner rounder to round the corners. That corner rounder is really, really old, so I guess it's gotten a little dull over the years, but I was able to use it after a couple of punches to round the corners of my paper. And then I attached everything down to the black piece of paper, and now there's a nice black mat all around the outside. So I wanted to add some embellishments to the layout, but of course the layout is extremely busy because I have all of those hearts and all of that modeling paste and stamping. So I thought I could make the embellishments stand out a little bit by putting a mat around the outside. So I used a few of the paints and I painted some regular cardstock, and then once the paint was dry, I attached down the embellishments and I fussy cut all around them, leaving a little bit of a border. And I do think that this helps the embellishments to stand out from all of the busy background that I have on my layout. So I have my photo attached down. So this is a picture of my younger daughter, Julia, and a bunch of her friends from 2015. They went down to Manhattan together, and I didn't go on this trip, but the mom who took them down took a bunch of pictures for us. And I love the way the kids were all sitting around this big sign that says love. So I thought that this was a really cute picture to go along with the February kit. And this photo was taken out of an album that I'm trying to finish. There's only a couple of pages left, and I don't know why I scrapbooked the majority of the album and then left like 5 pages undone. So I'm going to try to concentrate on getting those 5 sets of pictures scrapbooked so that I can call that album done. Years ago, I used to always try to work on an album until I had it all done, and I've gotten away from that, and I actually really like that feeling of completing an album, so I'm going to try to start doing that again and get some of these older photos that I really should have scrapbooked already, scrapbooked, and the albums that they're in complete. That's my goal for this year. I'm using some more of the Distress Oxide to ink the edges of the embellishments. Again, that helps them to stand out a little bit from the background. I really like these embellishments. I think that they're really cute and go really well with the photo. I especially like the XOXO and the heart-shaped sunglasses. I didn't add too many embellishments to this layout because there's already so much going on in the background, so I decided to keep the embellishments a little bit simpler than usual. And every time I make a layout that has a circle in the middle, I always feel like I need to put something in the corners. And what I often do is use this punch. This is an older punch. I get a lot of use out of this one. When you punch it, it punches out 2 different styles of corners, and one of them is a little bit more delicate than the other. It has little scrolls on it, so that's the one that I'm using for this layout. To make these corners stand out a little bit more, I punched them out again using black paper, and I'm going to slightly offset the pink corners from the black corners, and that will help them be a little bit more visible. And then I think that inking the edges also helps them to be visible as well. Usually when I attach things like this together, I use the ATG adhesive, but I decided that since they were so tiny, I might rip them with the ATG gun, so I decided to just use some gel glue to attach them together. And then while I was thinking about corners, I decided that I would use this other corner punch and punch out some photo corners for my photo. And it was a good thing that I cut out that centerpiece from the pattern paper because I used it both for the corners and for the photo corners. And then once again, I used my dauber and I inked the edges of all the photo corners, and then I attached all of these down to the layout. And I was thinking that it was probably safe to use ATG adhesive on the photo corners, especially now that I had those scrolls reinforced with another layer of the black cardstock. Now that I have all of those elements down, I was thinking that the page was almost done, but it was lacking a little something. So I used this EK Success punch. It's a large scallop, and I punched it so that the sections of the scallop were barely held together, and I was able to just kind of pull them apart and tuck them behind the circle and go all the way around the circle with them so that I would have a little scalloped border. And then I decided that I needed a little bit more stitching. So I'm going to add some stitching going all around the circle. I thought I would use kind of a brighter pink to do that. So I'm using this little tool that I bought ages ago with a little mat that goes with it. The mat is in shreds at this point because I've been using it for so many years, but it still gets the job done. And now I'm using some embroidery thread and doing a very simple back stitch all the way around that circle just to add a little bit more texture and a little bit more color to the layout. And I don't usually include footage of me stitching, or much of it anyway, because you really can't see what's going on. But now you can see that I stitched all the way around the circle, and I thought it was time to add a few embellishments. I have some red enamel dots. I add those to the corner little scroll pieces, and then I added some pink enamel dots that are a little bit smaller to each of the 3 photo corners where you can see the corner of it. And then for my big circle, I added a pearl, a self-adhesive pearl, between each of the sections. The fact that it's a very light color means that it won't be super noticeable, but it will add a little bit of texture. And I also have so many of this particular size of pearl because I tend to use the smaller ones. So I thought this was a great opportunity to add a little bit of extra embellishing to the page and also use up some of these pearls that I have so many of. And then as another little finishing touch, I was thinking that I could use these stickers that were included in the February kit to add kind of a Valentine look to each of the hearts. They say cute things like friends and hi, sweet, now, smile, things like that. So I thought those were cute, so I added them to a couple of the hearts on the background. In addition to having stickers that had words on them, there were also some that had shapes. So I also incorporated a couple of stickers that had hearts on them, and one of them had a star. And I think that those little tiny touches just help to make the layout a little bit more interesting. Those were the very last touches. The layout is complete, and here are some close-ups. When you place an order with Shimmerz Paints, please use my name in the comments and you'll receive a free gift. I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed watching it, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day to view this video. Take a look in the description box for a link to the Shimmerz shop where you can pick up this beautiful kit, and they also have the new March kit available too. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.